I'm going to get you guys ready for Week 16 on DraftKings by looking at some advanced stats and trends, and we're starting right now. Joe Holka here. Welcome to another daily fantasy sports and betting video. If this is your first time here and you want to become a profitable DraftKings player and get better at betting, start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking that notification bell so you don't miss anything along the way. If you want to take that a step further, check out the description below. All the live streams going forward will now be over on Twitch. And definitely check out the Discord community as well. I want you guys to get involved. You definitely won't regret it. It's time to dig a little bit deeper into Week 16 using the data hub at Sports Info Solutions. All right, guys, I want to give you my 3 favorite mismatches at the line of scrimmage for defenses that are under 3K on DraftKings. So that's going to be the first part of this video. I really want to see if we can target anything on this main slate that could go a little bit under-owned, or at least get a nice price discount on something where there's going to be a decent amount of pressure. Always want to try and target pressure over anything at defense, because what we really want is sacks, interceptions, and a chance at a defensive touchdown. And so the best way to do that is by using the data hub and using some of the pass rush stats that they do have that are really solid. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to filter the game filters. I actually want to kind of look at time first and filter the weeks. Let's look at the last 4 weeks. So week 12 to week 15, and then hit submit. And then I want to scroll down, and I actually want to hit the rates tab. And the column that I really want to look at is not even sack percent, it's pressure percent, because I just want offenses that have been at least uncomfortable if I'm trying to target really interceptions, sacks, and turnovers ideally. So I want teams that are going to pressure a lot. I think we can look past the Ravens because they aren't on this main slate today, but not surprising to see them at the top of this list over the last 4 games. The team I want to talk about first is actually the New England Patriots. So the 6th most pressure percentage in the entire league over the past 4 weeks, 40.28%. Pretty strong number from them for a team that hasn't really pressured a ton over the course of the season. They've really ramped that up lately. So it's just a great spot against this Bills team. If we want to get an idea of which teams in general have been allowing a lot of pressures, we can do that on one of the other tabs at SIS. So the best way I've found to kind of back into what teams are allowing pressure is on the passing tab. We're going to go to advanced filters, and then we're also going to hit pressure and hit yes. And then also we're going to do the same time frame as before, week 12 to week 15. So the last 4 weeks, what teams have been giving up a decent amount of pressure on those pass attempts. So we'll scroll down here and we'll see the total attempts that some of these teams have faced while under pressure, but that doesn't really tell us a whole lot. Like, I want the percentage of pass attempts that these teams have faced. So in order to kind of calculate that, I'm going to open up another tab, and so just to make it a little bit easier, after we have this total number, trying to find some of the big discrepancies based on the total percent. One of the teams that stands out is this Buffalo Bills team, like I mentioned. So Buffalo actually has only thrown the ball 115 times. The Bills' offensive line has actually allowed pressure on 54% of that. So that's pretty massive, guys. 46.9% of the Bills' passing attempts over the last 4 games have been under pressure. So it's interesting. I think it's a really great spot to attack with the Patriots defense. Again, the 6th highest pressure rate at 40.28%. I think it's a pretty big mismatch, and that's the first one that I wanted to highlight for you guys. There's this ton of different ways to look at pressure on this database, but that's one of the ways that I use it. So another one that really stood out to me was the Vikings. You can see they're number 2 in pressure percent over this same period of time. And if you wanted to kind of target another team that's been allowing pressure, definitely think the Lions are right there. As you can see, the Lions have allowed 46 attempts under pressure this year. And for this Vikings team that's really been pressuring well, I think there's a good chance that they definitely get to Matthew Stafford in this one. I think there's a good chance that they have a pretty similar game to what they had last week against Tannehill. Like, Tannehill was sacked 9 times against the Vikings. So definitely think the Vikings could go under-owned. A lot of people don't really want to attack this Detroit team because they like to slow down the pace. Stafford hasn't been that prone to turnovers, but I definitely think that the pressure stats are kind of leading me more towards the Vikings as kind of a lower owned play. They are a little bit more expensive, $2,900 on DraftKings, but definitely think if you're looking for something a little bit lower owned on the road, I think that they're very much still in play based on these pressure numbers. The last one I wanted to talk about was Jacksonville. So their defensive line, if we scroll down a little bit, kind of middle of the pack. Jaguars 18th in pressure rate over the last 4 games, but they are playing the Dolphins, who have allowed the 6th most pressure. So in comparison to some of the other ones we talked about, 38.4% passing plays have amounted to the quarterback being under pressure. So I think it's a pretty nice spot for Jacksonville, kind of a get-right spot. And again, like we targeted this Dolphins team last week with the Vikings. I think there's definitely a chance that this offensive line could allow a bunch more sacks again this week. Jacksonville, not quite the pressure ratings as the Vikings, but definitely think they could get home for a few sacks in this one. They're 2,700 on DraftKings, so another defense that I think is reasonable to target in tournaments at under 3K, which is one of the things that I definitely want to prioritize. Tannehill's 11.2 sacks per game over the past years is second highest on the slate to actually Cody Kessler on the other side of this game. So 2.7 interception rate over that same period, 8th most over that time period. So Tannehill's a guy that'll turn it over. He'll take sacks. Another great way I think to use this data hub is to actually look at quarterbacks that are willing to kind of throw downfield. I think downfield upside is something that kind of goes underutilized in the DFS community. I definitely think that trying to target wide receivers with upside, higher ADOT players really makes a ton of sense in tournaments, but definitely think that in today's NFL, you have to shoot for a little bit more ceiling. Some of those big gains, we at least need opportunities for that. So I do think that trying to find cheaper correlation is really important as well in DFS. So the 2 guys I want to talk about that are throwing downfield with the most frequency since week 12, again, we're going to stick with the last 4 games, are Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. So we're going to start with those 2 guys. Josh Allen, a way to kind of filter this out is on the passing tab and under player leaderboards, you're going to go to time filters. Again, we're going to filter out week 12 to week 15. And then we're going to go to advanced filters, scroll all the way down, and we're going to look at the air yard selector. So anything 20 yards and above as far as the air yards will count as a deep pass. Josh Allen, 26% of his throws have been deep. So I really like that. And we're definitely want to look at the total as well. So similarly to how we were trying to get the offensive line pressure percentages, you'll need to bring up the total as well. So Josh Allen, as far as his total pass attempts, 114. So again, 26 of those are at 20 air yards or more. So 23% of Josh Allen's pass attempts have been deep throws. So that's the most in the entire league over this span. And the second guy, Baker Mayfield, 21 attempts of 20 yards or more downfield. And for him, it's 122 pass attempts. So really solid number for Baker as well. At 17% of his throws have been deep. So these are the 2 guys that I really want to focus on when highlighting this page. And the thing that I think really matters is, from Josh Allen's perspective, is this matchup is infinitely better for his rushing upside as well this week. And it's pretty easy to use the data hub to kind of highlight that as well. So when we get to the team leaderboards page, we want to move over to run defense, go to advanced filters. We're going to uncheck all, and we're going to check all these quarterback run options. Scroll down, hit submit. So the Lions defense has actually allowed the fewest yards in the entire league to the quarterback position on the ground. So 76 yards this entire season. I think a lot of that has to do with how they play a good amount of zone coverage. So their eyes are at the line of scrimmage, right? So they definitely know when things are coming. They've limited guys like Dak. It was a really tough matchup for Josh Allen. But so this week, if we go on the other side of the spectrum, the Patriots have actually allowed the 10th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. So this spot for Josh Allen definitely has a lot more upside on the ground. So much better matchup for sure. And kind of on the same kind of thought there, they play a lot of man coverage. So it's more or less just more room for a guy like Josh Allen to really take off if he doesn't see anything. And the best thing about Josh Allen is these 2 factors. He's willing to run and he'll throw deep. So I really like him today. So I really like him this week, especially at 5,800. I think it's a really solid price point for him. If we want to go back to Baker Mayfield, again, I mentioned he's thrown a deep ball at least over the last 4 games on 17% of his throws, second most in the league only to Allen. Really like how there's a lot of cheap kind of guys you can stack with both of these guys. One thing I will say about Cleveland is I really like how they're always kind of a high-paced team that runs a ton of plays. From a volume perspective, Baker is at least really interesting. And they do have the Cincinnati defense this week that's been historically bad at allowing yards to pretty much any position. So I definitely think a guy like Chubb is in play as well. But if you get a little bit of uniqueness with Baker, definitely think he has some upside. Willing to throw downfield is such a big part of fantasy at the quarterback position. So definitely wanted to highlight both of these guys and how to use the data hub to kind of come up with some of these players. So if you wanted to take a shot on one of these quarterbacks, it would make sense to try and figure out who's actually seeing some of those targets. So you can do this in the data hub as well. You want to go up top to the player leaderboards, which we're on, and we're going to go to receiving. Again, we're in week 12 through week 15. We're going to scroll all the way down with the advanced filters, and we're going to sort out air yards to 20 again. Hit submit. Actually, let's change the team as well. Let's change the team to just Buffalo to start, since we started with Josh Allen. Hit submit. And if we scroll down here, it's pretty obvious. The targets have been going to Robert Foster, 10 targets of 20 air yards or more over the last 4 games. Love that. And Zay Jones. So both of those guys definitely stand out. Robert Foster, 4,900 on DraftKings. Zay Jones, 3,700 on DraftKings. So love the cheap correlation play with these guys, especially if you think there's a chance that they could get deep in this one. One thing that I will say is a little bit concerning is, yeah, I talked about the Patriots defense and how they might be able to get kind of through this offensive line. That would definitely kind of limit the time that's available for these guys to get downfield. But I definitely think that Allen's mobile enough to try and make some big plays in this game. He's been doing it for the last couple of weeks, and not a situation I really am actively looking to jump off of just yet. On the Cleveland side of things, let's sort by them and see kind of who's seeing their deep targets, at least most recently, if you did want to go with the Baker team in tournaments. Jarvis Landry, 6 targets of 20 or more yards, and David Njoku. So Jarvis Landry's at 6,200, but I think Njoku's actually kind of interesting at 3,800. I think a lot of people will kind of go the direction of a CJ Uzoma, maybe even a Herndon in that range, but neither of those guys really have the upside of Njoku, a guy that's seeing some deep targets. I definitely think that that's super interesting. I mean, only 2 of those targets have been catchable, but 5 deep targets over the last 4 games. At least we know that there's a little bit more upside with a guy like Njoku, who's a pretty good athlete. So I always like kind of looking at some of these targets that people are seeing deep down the field, especially if we're trying to pair with these quarterbacks for a cheap price. All right, guys, going to go ahead and end it there for today. Good luck in Week 16. If you want to do research just like this, definitely check out Sports Info Solutions. That data hub over there is really incredible. So I'm going to probably continue to do some more of these type of videos just to show you guys my research process, things that I'm actually using to get ready for each and every week for NFL on DraftKings. So if you like my work and you want to support my work, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so that next time a video pops up, you won't miss anything. And then definitely check out the live shows over on Twitch. We do a Sunday morning stream at 9 Eastern time to get everyone ready for kickoff. All right, good talk. See you out there.